we were all at the Hui. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Got up early in the morning and got through the traffic to get there, and had very late nights coming back, and then getting caught on the motorway coming back when with roadworks. That's cool. So this morning we want to give you a little bit of an overstory, a little bit of a picture, really, of Hui. It's so hard to do that. Really and truly, what I would love to do is to just pick you all up and transport you from here to Manukau City Baptist Church and take you all to the Hui, because we really don't fully comprehend or understand the bigness and the goodness and the greatness of being a wider church family through the Baptist denomination throughout New Zealand. It is large, 240 churches. And when you get people coming from all of those 240 churches, and we're the delegates from this church, and you heard Carol just a little bit earlier, and Kylie was there as well. She's out looking after the kids this morning. You can see how many people might be there, potentially 500 or 600 people all gathered together. I put a little verse in the newsletter this week, which I felt was going to be significant. It's a verse that I gave to you when I first started back at the church, and it comes from John's Gospel, chapter 17, and it's the prayer of Jesus. This prayer of Jesus to the Father just before he was going to be crucified, and Jesus prayed these words. I keep skipping the page. Here we are. Chapter 17, verse 20. I am praying. Jesus is praying. I am praying not only for these disciples, but also for all who will ever believe in me through the message. Is that you? All those who will believe in the message. Jesus was praying for you. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one. As you are in me, Father, and I am in you, and may they be in us, so that the world will believe you sent me. Jesus wants us to be one. Now, that's not just talking about us as a church, that's talking about us as a denomination. It's talking about all the denominations throughout our land as well, and throughout the world. Can you imagine how diversified that is? That is huge. Jesus prayed that we might be one. And God said to me, Steve, are you going to be the answer to Jesus' prayer? Or are you going to be an obstacle? But what I loved about Hui was we saw this oneness. We saw the churches of the Baptist churches of New Zealand coming together. And as we gathered together on the first day for the pulpuri, we were welcomed onto the site. We were welcomed as the family of Baptists to that site. We were called to be one people, with one voice, with one God. There was a beautiful story that came out in the pulpuri, told by Greg Motu. Greg said they were standing in the Doha airport the day that Hamas attacked Israel. They were waiting for a plane to go to Tel Aviv. There's a whole lot of them, a whole bunch of people, the indigenous people from all around the Pacific, have been having a relationship with the Messianic Jews in Jerusalem for 7 years. They've been talking about having a conference, about getting together. And on that day they stood in the Doha airport, not knowing whether the airport would be closed or whether the plane was going to fly to Tel Aviv. And Greg said, I prayed to God and I said, God, if you don't want us to go, shut the door. And then they heard their flight being called to go to the gate. They got on the plane. They flew to Tel Aviv. And over the next few days, They had their conference in the midst of everything else that was going on in Israel. They called the indigenous people of the Pacific to come and gather with the Messianic Jews in Jerusalem because they believed that there is something special in that relationship that is happening. And he said, as we gathered together, we rededicated our lands to Jesus. The Messianic Jews rededicated the land of Israel to Jesus. Greg and the team from New Zealand dedicated the land of New Zealand to Jesus, because Jesus is the one who created us, who created the land and who gave it to us, that we might be guardians of that land. I thought that was a beautiful story. I thought that was a good introduction to the Hui. I thought that was amazing. God gave me a picture. The picture of the Hui was a picture of a house. Now, I always go to building, something to do with building, because that's what I was, a builder. So I went to a building, and God showed me a picture of a house. It's an old house, 140 years old. That's the age of the Baptist denomination in New Zealand, 140 years old. And we're like a house that's in need of repair, that's in need of restoration. The Baptist churches of New Zealand were calling us together because last year at the Hui, they said we need to look at the condition of our Baptist Union. We need to look at the condition of our Baptist churches. We need to look at them and we need to say, what do we need to do to be able to move forward? Our focus, we've got some slides I think coming up on the screen. Our focus was this. Have you got them there, Sophie? Shaping our future. Baptists shaping our future. What do we need to do to shape our future? And the whole Hui was about looking at that. This year they began to do some of that work. And there was so much of the Hui that aligned with this shaping the future of the Baptist denomination. In this old house, there are things that need to be done. We talked about the Constitution, and some people look at the Constitution and go, oh, boring. But no, if we're going to move forward into the future, we need to look at the Constitution because we don't want that to hold us back in the past. And they said there are things in our Baptist Constitution that are no longer applicable. There are things in there that it talks about that we no longer do. So we need to look at it. And so over the next year, they're going to look at the Constitution. They have a fantastic team that are gathering together to look at the Baptist Church Constitution and what needs to take place to bring change. And I'm so excited about that. These guys are top guys. They're talking about it, looking through it and working it out. And in 2025, they're hoping that they will be able to bring a new constitution for the Baptist churches of New Zealand. That's exciting. That's exciting. It's not much wonder we're looking at our constitution presently, because that's an important thing to do. In this old house that needs renovation, there is the Baptist Missionary Society, the Baptist Youth Movement, the Baptist Maori Ministries, and so many other different aspects of who we are as Baptists. And so every single one of these rooms is being looked at. How can we renovate it? How can we restore it? And you know what it's like when you're restoring a house? Do you know what it's like when you're restoring a house? There are so many decisions that need to be made. So many hard conversations that need to be had. Will we have pink walls? Will we have blue walls? What sort of kitchen are we going to have? What sort of bathroom will we build? And there are hard conversations that I know. We've just gone through the building process, and Lynn and I didn't agree on everything. You have to come to a compromise and say, what are we going to do here? Let's work on this together. And I love the passage of scripture that they chose in Ephesians. I've got it here. Talks about, oh no, I haven't. It's here somewhere. Ephesians, what was it? I've got the right book, yeah. You're right, I've got the right book. This one here, Ephesians 4. If we were talking about, can we sit in the same room and have the difficult conversations that need to be made? All right? Can we sit in the same room? Can we do it? Can we do it well? And Paul says in Ephesians 4, he says, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourself united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body, one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. And with these hard conversations that the Baptist Union are going to be having over these next couple of years, there's going to be needing a lot of grace, a lot of trust from us as a church. And we will have some of those difficult conversations as well. And if we're going to stay in the same room and have those conversations, then we all need to look at each other and say, who's right and who's wrong? And I loved one person made this comment. They said, I look at it and I have my views, I have my thoughts, and I have my opinions. But am I right? You know, am I right? So anyway, that's my little take on Hui. There is so much involved in it, and I'm going to let some of the others share that too. I asked Selena to come and share with us because the Baptist Maori Ministry, they had a wonderful presentation, and a lot was said that I can't remember. But I'm hoping that Selena can fill us in on some of that. So Selena, come and talk with us about it. Do you need the podium?
Oh, yeah. That'd be cool. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Let's stay. Tēnā no tātou katoa. Ko Selena hira ahau. Noko nei ahau. Hey everyone. I'm Selena Hira, married to Tony at the back there, and I'm from this place. My tribal affiliations here are at Ngāti Tipa, heading down towards the port, Te Kohanga, including Tuakau as well. I shared with somebody that I feel like a foreigner in my own land. I returned from Melbourne, we returned from Melbourne after about 20 years away in Australia, living all over Australia. And I said that the country's changed so much. And I said, but the church hasn't changed. And she challenged me and said, is that a good thing? And I said, I don't know. It's comfortable. And I said, but is that a good thing? I don't know. I don't think so. Anyway, I'm just sharing my heart with you. So I'm uncomfortable because I don't have my language. My parents didn't pass it on to us because they were strapped as kids at school. And I think a lot of what was said from the contingent that I was with in Baptist Māori circles, sitting up on the stage talking about things there, a lot of it was around reclamation of language. And that really spoke to my heart. And it's an identity thing. So I don't know how I can bring that across to you. At high school, I wasn't offered Māori. It came in after my time. And so I was offered French, I was offered German, and I passed on those. I just thought, nah. I'll change my options and I'll take something else. So I want you to hear the heart of our people who were stripped of our language, and it's a biggie. it's a real biggie. And I suppose you know that because there's signs up everywhere. I mean, I came back and I was like, whoa, you know, there's signs on rubbish bins and there's signs on everywhere, you know, as you're driving around. And so people are coming back to the language. I see that all around me, and I want to be part of that because I've felt this for many, many years. Before I left, I wanted to learn my language, and I had been going to different courses and picking up bits and pieces, and most of what I got was vocab, and I didn't get, I was thinking, I can't even speak in a conversation to anybody. That's how bad I feel about it. But I know that God is doing something in our denomination, and I want to be a part of that. And I just thought, if we had something here in churches where Māori could come and learn something that was taken away by people way back. We didn't have anything to do with it, it just happened, And my generation, I feel that we missed out. But that's just one thing. And I that's what I hear, mostly that's what I heard. And at the end, one of the couples that came up on stage, the husband is European. He said he had English background, I think Devon. He said he came from, part of his ancestry was from Devon, and another place, I can't remember if it was Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales, so. But he said he recently went to a Treaty of Waitangi course, and he learned some things, some horrific things about the history of New Zealand, and I thought that would be great to run something like that in our churches. Not just for us to learn, but for our community to learn about. I mean, he just learned this a few weeks ago, and he said he had been so proud of his ancestry. And I thought, we're all different, aren't we? We all have different things to bring. And I know I'm in this great big melting pot. I was praying about what God wanted me to share up there on the stage. And I thought, Lord, please give me something that's meaningful, that will touch the heart of people who, may be able to see a bit of us in it and see our heart. So there were just a few things that I just wanted to share that God... The question actually that I asked was, how can I address this? And so give me the question. And the question was, how do you see Baptist Māori flourishing? And what might that look like as we join God in his mission, the God dreams? And then I got this, I had this picture of Luke singing that song, Luke Carmorgan. He was singing that song that he wrote years ago. Listen to the sound of the people coming back. Praises in their hearts instead of heaviness. Look and see the warriors are full of hope, courage and humility, for they choose to walk in the light. Listen to the sound of the people coming back. The deliverer has come with compassion. Look and see the women in their dignity, strength and purity, for they choose to walk in the light where God is. And then I just felt the Lord was saying to me, for Māori to be flourishing in their walk with God, they need to be trusted. They need to be visible. They need to have a voice that is heard and be valued and be supported. We all need support. All of those things that I mentioned, they relate to all of us in our walk with God, don't they? Not just for Māori. for each and every one of us. And I asked my mum, what did that question, what did she, what was her answer for that? And she said, just being themselves. Not faking it, just being ourselves. I think we can all relate to that. And so for me, that's uniquely and unashamedly Māori. Another thing that was brought up is that we do community well. And one lady shared about the health system, that they were looking to the UK for health system because the health system here was failing. But she was saying, why look there when things are failing over there? Why not look to our own and have a kōrero together about it? So that was another thing. And then the dreams, and I, what did I see for dreams for Māori ahead? I just thought Māori pastors would be great. Men and women that are standing up and taking that up, to be a pastor. Somebody said Māori theologians, and I thought, whoa, that's, I hadn't thought that, but yeah, God, you can do whatever with whomever you please. So, yeah, that's what I have to share. God bless you.
Oh, just something to hide behind, really? Yeah. Hey, good morning, church. How's everybody doing? Good? Okay. So, I had a very, very good privilege to be at Hui, and just the testimony even behind being able to get to Hui is something in itself. But the main probably theme, I would say, that I am taking away from Hui is change. Change, shaping our future. It's not going to look the same. I'd like to take this moment to give a shout out to Felix online, who asked Josh earlier, and they sent me a text being like, Josh isn't on, Timu isn't on stage, and it's like, I am now. But hopefully you're still watching. Change, and what might that look like for the future of not just the Baptist movement, but for our church here in Pukekohe. And Selena brought a word from the te reo side of things, but there are a multitude of other things that even Steve touched on as well, in terms of how we might work together with other churches in our local community, even in talks of listening to what was spoken at the Hui about how we as Baptist churches and how we are supporting each other's and a bit more of a local or national level. But one thing that I have been contemplating on, as a conversation that I had with my dad recently, is about how we are impacted as people, and then we are impacting our families, and then that's passed on to our wider church family, and then passed on to our community, passed on to our nation, and then passed on to the world. And at the moment, I think what we've done, and we've done it well, is we've looked after ourselves, we've looked after our family, and we've looked after our church. And I think there are elements where it's now that stage of change where we've done for a number of years those things really well. It's that how are we utilizing the resources that we have and partnering with not just ourselves but our community, our nation, and then going into the world. And that's another part of the what was great to hear about mission and what people are and places are doing overseas. And yeah, so for me, definitely that theme of change and what we might be doing as a church and how community may look different for us in the future.
Hello. Goedemorgen allemaal. Those of you who are Dutch will know that I said good morning, everybody. Kia ora whānau. For a start, I just want to thank you for voting me on to the leadership team, which was just, a month ago? Something like that. So I thought, oh, gosh, a leadership team of Franklin Baptist. I better find out what it means to be Baptist. So that was one of the reasons why I thought I really need to go to Hui to find out what it is to be Baptist. And so I spent the 3 days there. It was very enlarging. I'm proud to now be Baptist. I have previously been in Pentecostal churches, but I am coming to love the structures that we have that are here to keep us safe and help us to grow. So yeah, came away appreciating it, so thank you. I wanted to be after Josh because I thought Josh was going to be talking about youth, but he didn't. So I'm going to fill in a few gaps there because that was one of the things that really captured me by going to Hui. So as a denomination, we are an ageing denomination, and that is also reflected here, that we have a lot less young people than we do older people. So I must say that when I first came to Franklin Baptist, I was blown away by how many older people we had. I thought, whoa, the churches that I've been in, they would love to have a few of you there, It was a lot of young people, a lot of not lack of maturity, a lot of youth, but, there's something that old people do bring through their experiences and their walk with God. So I would say that through my having being on also the search committee and really, looking at our church, how I treasure the older people in this congregation, that we have got treasures here. What I see out there, so many of you who've been, in the mission field, who've been pastors, who've had theological training, but also those just who haven't been in those realms but have had life experiences, been walking with God 20, 30, 40 years, 50, some of us. Oh, I'm not quite there yet, but... So I do love this church and really desire to see God, increase what we have here. One of the things about youth in church, I'm going to read a proverb that I heard from a pastor from Hillsong a few years ago, and it comes from Proverbs 14 verse 4, where there are no oxen, the trough is clean, but much increase comes by the strength of an ox. So in her application, she was saying, having youth being 0 to 25, you can count yourself in there if you want to. But if we have youth, there can come messiness. There can come a bit of messiness, there can come noise, there can become maybe some things that might irritate us. But, what do we want? Do we want to have a place that is clean, or do we want to have a place that has some messiness? Because that is talking about growth. I don't know if any of you remember, you can put your hands up if you like, that Morris Milman once had a sermon and he talked about messy church. We should be a messy church. Do anyone remember that? Was it just me? Because I'm a bit messy. Good on you. So his message was saying that in our world we have messiness. The people, and that affects people. As a people, we are a bit messed up. And being 63 now, I can sort of say, I know that all of us are a bit messed up. So that's why we're here, isn't it? Because we are a bit messed up. And we've come to a place where we meet with our Saviour, one who brings healing to our brokenness, one who brings light to our darkness, who transforms us. We're in a place to experience the power and presence of God to bring transformation to our lives. So therefore we invite messiness into our midst. So just a little story. When I was a mum with my daughter being 1 year old, I decided I really need to go and visit this tante of mine, this auntie, because my family were immigrants from Holland in 1952, and the older generation was starting to die out. And I realised if I don't go and see my relatives, I may not see them again. So I packed up my daughter, and anyone who's got kids know what that is. 1 year old in a car, drive 2 hours. And man, that took a lot of effort. And my tante opened the door, and what I saw on her face was a bit of horror. So I go in with my daughter, and she's there sort of sitting with her hands like this, afraid of what my daughter was going to be doing in her little house. She had a cabinet with all her special things. She held her Delft Blue and her Boerenbond, and these things were treasures. And I was coming with my 1 year old daughter into her midst. And then I saw a stuffed doll, and I thought, there's something here for my daughter. And my daughter made her way to the little stuffed doll, and she said, "Oh, no, that belongs to your Aunt Pete." That was my grandfather who had passed away. And I thought, I'm in the wrong place. My messiness is not welcome here. So I had to pack up and go home, and I felt sad that my messiness wasn't welcome. Maybe I didn't have too much wisdom. Maybe I should have met her out in the park somewhere. I know that now, but I didn't know that then. So let's be a church that's welcome of messiness. Because if we're honest, we're all a bit messy. And that's what God does in us. He transforms our messiness. We need to be a place that welcomes messiness. So that's one part of my little spiel. So the other thing is, whenever I've gone to courses or conferences, someone said, if you can just take one thing home and apply it straight away to where you are, that conference was worth it. I got more than that. But one thing that I thought we could even do today, one thing with youth, to be able to keep them within our environment, is that they have, one of the statistics was that if they had relationship with at least 4 older people within the congregation, you're more likely to retain them within your midst. So getting to know each other. So what does that mean? Like I said before, I think there is so much treasure in here of those who've walked with God for many years and seen his power in their lives. When I first came here about 13, 14 years ago, I remember seeing this old lady with grey hair, and she was stooped over, and she had a stick, and it was hard for her to move. And I remember she sat down just over there, and I was over there. I remember it quite vividly, but I never actually made the effort to go and say hello or anything. I thought, this is one of the many that are here, and didn't think too much about it. And 2 years later, that lady was no longer with us. She had passed away. So just to say, when you've got grey hair, it takes a lot of effort to get there. You've got a lot of life experiences to actually be able to treasure these grey hairs. So what it turned out to be was this woman was one of the very early members of our church. She, if you know her name, you can call it out when I tell a story. But she She was the first missionary that was assigned by the Baptist Union to be missionary amongst Māori. Joan Milner, yes. Joan Milner, yes. Yeah, what a legend. What a legend. Do you remember it was Erin who came up here talking about the legend, Joan Milner, who worked full-time amongst Māori in the lower Waikato River region. So, she was full-time, her heart was in that. So we have still evidence amongst us of the work that she did. And so that work, she just, so here's me thinking, little old lady stick, not able to work very well. But man, if I'd been able to sit by her and hear her stories, whoa, I think it would have been mind-boggling. Luckily, we've got that written down, and I do know her story now, and some of you experienced her story. But just as a practical thing, can I say that to the youth, there are many, many God stories in this place. So my challenge to you is seek them out. After the service, maybe you'll just go and sit by someone you don't know, introduce yourself, and say, what are your God stories? Maybe as we go out and sit around tables, make a few spaces for youth, find a few youth and invite them to your table. Let's share stories. What is it that many here who after 20, 30, 40, 50 years are still following God? What is it? What's that treasure that they have found that has kept them walking with our Saviour, Jesus Christ, all those years? So there is treasure in our midst here. Many old people, many that are holding treasures. Seek them out. So let's be family together. Let's invite messiness. Let's make our place a place where messy people are welcome. And then if you're feeling a bit messed up, you can go home. We can go home to our tidy houses and stuff, But let's be okay with messiness.
Thanks, Liz. Isn't it great? We had a great time there. There's a slide. I wonder if you could put it up for me. Yeah, there we go. There were 4 big bites at the Hui that they spoke about. I was able to get to the Saturday where we had big bite number 3 and big night number 4. Bite number 4. So I'm just going to be very brief because I know you've been sitting for a while and we have communion coming up. But just to say that I was pleased, this is one of my passions, to look at keeping people and places safe. And this was something that was discussed. It was quite emotional. It was quite heavy. We were talking about if there was a situation and we were all too close to the situation, would we agree with having a mechanism set up by the Baptist churches that would allow outside people to come in and actually have the authority and the influence to help in that situation? So there was robust conversation around that, healthy conversation, something that they will be pursuing, something that I think is really important for us. So always my heart is for policies and making sure our policies are up to date and procedures to keep people safe. So that's what we will actually be looking at already until the end of the year. There was a lady, Geraldine Grudge. Now she's a lawyer, she spoke to us about this, and interestingly enough, I had just had a conversation with her 2 weeks ago about looking at our policies and procedures. So I'm really excited about that, Probably the only one in the room excited about policies and procedures. But it's foundational, isn't it, for our ministries, for what we want to do in our community. We have to think about these things and be really wise about them. The big bite number 4 was about good stewardship of the assets that we have. So the resources that God's given us. You know, well, this was touched on very briefly, quite controversial. But the thought, would we pull resources as Baptist churches? Ooh. Would we? Would we share churches? Would we sell things to benefit other churches if we saw God working in that particular area? Just really good food for thought. That didn't lead anywhere. It's all right. Didn't go anywhere. We were just discussing it. But on a bigger scale, the Baptist churches, we're looking at the assets that they have. Are they using them well? There needs to be a review on that. So that's really what it was about, stewardship. There is so much more that we could share, clearly, but we'll finish it up there, and we're just going to pray, and I'm going to hand to Faye, who's going to take us in a time of communion. So maybe we could stand, because we've all been sitting a while, and we could just pray for the 240 Baptist churches throughout New Zealand who gathered together, who will all come home today to share what's gone on at Hui and how we apply this here. So, Father, I thank you that you are our God. Lord, I want to thank you for all the churches, the Baptist churches in New Zealand. Would you minister to each one of us, each church, Lord? Help us to honour you in all that we do and we say. Lord, help us to reach our communities, to work together really well, to be good stewards of what you have given us, Lord. Father, I just pray that as the staff team and leadership and all that went, process, digest all this information that we were given, you would be our wisdom, and that you would help us to really know what to apply here. Just thank you for our time at Hui, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.